Hello, greetings to everyone. It's me, Thales. It's me again. This is my channel about English language, and today we will continue talking about human resources management. So, in the first video of this series, I made a small introduction of what human resource management is, and today we will continue to do that, okay? I found an interesting picture that I will show you in the beginning of this video, and then we will go to the explanation, to the conversation we're going to have about human resources. The idea is that, look, this is the website liveabout.com. And I found this picture here that I found very interesting. It's an illustration by Catherine Song, The Balance, 2018. Well, what does the HR manager do, right? And we're going to talk a little about it today. Not everything as it is in this picture, but many interesting concepts that we talked about in the first picture. Recruiting and staffing, selecting process, policy development, we will talk more about it today. Employee onboarding, it's when you have a new employee, you have to welcome him aboard, right? So it's an onboarding, it's a process in which an employee is going to learn more about your organization, the culture, the processes, the organogram, the structure, everything. You will learn more about it. And you have employee services and counseling as well. It's part of the role of the human resource manager. We will talk a lot about it, not necessarily today, but I have studied these in some books, and I will bring these concepts to you, okay? Now let's get started to what I have planned to talk about. Remember that we talked, what is human resources? The concept, right, that involves human resource management. We talked about how strategic this process is for the companies. And then we talked about some systems, right? What is human resources in a company? It involves staffing, compensation. It is in red because I already talked about it, okay? Retention, training. And we didn't talk a lot about employment law and policies. Employment law, you know, it's the law. You must respect the law and to abide by them. And you must respect, you must evaluate what you're going to do, and it's crucial that everything the company does is according to the law, of course, everything that the company does, not only human resources. So employment law is about the law of employment, right? Law of employment, of how the company hires, the contract types, what are the responsibilities and the rights that an employee has to protect the job of an employee, to protect the rights of the employee. And depending on the country you are, the laws are different. For example, here in Brazil, we receive another salary at the end of the year. I don't know if in the US there is such a thing. You have vacation salary and vacation income. You take part in profits and results from the company. You have law protection about pregnant women, children, healthcare. So everything must be followed, and every company has this process in the human resources, or maybe there is a law department. Some companies, they have different departments about it, but in general, human resource law related issues, they are within the human resource departments. Some companies, they have a different staff, right? Lawyers work in a different department, and they offer guidance and as what the company should do or should not do, and then the manager takes his or her decisions according to what they think it's correct. But of course, the company or the law department of the company offers some guidance and some advice on what you should do or what you shouldn't do. But who takes decisions in the company? It's important aspect of human resources. I'm thinking about it right now because human resources can't be responsible for everything that happens in the company. You have managers in the line, right, on the line. You have managers who work in the front operations of the organization. And each manager, despite not being a human resource manager, every manager has responsibility over people. And they must be aware of what happens in the company and to understand the consequences of his or her actions depending on what decisions they take. So it's not a simple task, right? HR offers some guidance, right? You have a business partner related professionals in HR which explain, guide, and offer some light, some insights on what should be done. But the decision is not responsibility for the US, for the Human Resource Department. Human Resource is a staff department in a way that it offers guidance, it offers analysis, and a technical perspective on what should be done or shouldn't be done according to the law, according to the policies, the company's policies, because every company has many policies regarding many different areas, right? HR function has its own policies. Financial departments have their policies as well. Production, and so goes on. But when we talk here about employment law, what is the idea here? Employment law is everything related to employment. What the laws responsible for hiring, for, how can I say, employment positions, when you get hired, when you have a contract, what the contract should have or shouldn't have, the rights and responsibilities for both sides, both the company and the employee, they have responsibilities and rights. So it's a very complex thing. For example, which have operations all over the world, they must have specialized staff who understand the local laws. Because, as I said, the law in the US is different from Brazil's, is different from Africa, from Europe. And depending on what the law allows or not allows to do, the company must be able to build policies that adapt to this situation. And the human resources actions and strategies and actions that are taken in name of the strategy, they must be tied to the law. Right? Everything, when you build a broader strategic plan, for example, when you study strategy in management school, it is told to you that it's important, it's necessary to understand the variables from the environment, right? You have the opportunities which can be taken advantages of, and threats as well. What threats the company must be aware of, and how the company should defend itself from what is happening or what may happen to the company. So the strategy is built considering a long-term strategy, but you also have strategies focused in the short term and middle term as well. Okay, now that we talked law, we also have policies. Human resource policies. What are some human resource policies? Every company has a handbook. Every human resource department has a handbook of procedures, of rules that the company should follow, and employees as well. For example, code of ethics is one of them. You also have some standardized documents that the company makes in order to explain how human resources work in the company. So you have for example, you have a chart and not a chart, you have a flexigram, and you have various different processes in the company. And each process has a way of working, right? Okay, I work in the recruitment and selection department for the company. Can I work the way I want? No, I have a job description, right? Every job position has a job description of some sort. Every department has a description of what is expected of them, the attributes, the responsibilities, what the area should or should not do. And then this is part of the policy. It's everything that is formal about how to do, what is allowed to do, what is not allowed to do, what the company believes in, the main beliefs, values, everything related to the cultural aspects of the company. So when you have policies, for example, it's part of the policy of the company to recruit both men and women equally. Of course, every company should have that, but it's part of their value, right? It's expressed, it's written somewhere that the company respects diversity, that the company values feminine workforce, that it stimulates leadership, that you see many different things that show you what the company believes in, right? Okay, my company believes that having a diverse workforce and flexible work is essential for building a teamwork, a team that works effectively. And that's it. All right, so in short, the concept of human resource involves everything in here: staffing, compensation, retention, training, employment law, and policies. Throughout this series of videos about human resources, I believe we will talk about some of these issues in detail. And now, we have here about the role of a human resource manager. You remember I told you that everyone in the company, every manager in the company is responsible for human resources, not only the human resources manager, right? Because a human resources manager is responsible for managing specialized work, right? Recruitment, selection, training. But depending on the company you are, if you work in a very small company that has just a few employees, it's not uncommon that the main manager of the company, or the operational manager, is also responsible for everything. Is responsible for making the goals, to detailing the goals that the employee must meet, and to establishing how the work should be done. This manager also is responsible for recruiting, selecting, interviewing, and hiring this employee, dismissing when the employee is no longer necessary, for example. And the compensation plan, if you don't have a structured HR department and a career path that is very well organized, maybe the person who is recruiting and selecting, he defines the salary because he has the budget under his role, his responsibility. So he defines what the salary will be, for example. And the training, development, what else? Evaluation, performance evaluation, feedback, everything. But in big companies, although some aspects and many processes in the organization, the manager, a technical manager, doesn't do it alone, but it has help and guidance from HR. But in some aspects, the manager takes the decision about who should be promoted, who should be demoted, who should be put in a certain position in the company, who should be transferred or not. Some decisions, they are responsibility from the manager. Even, for example, in my company, when you want, let's suppose an employee wants some training, and okay, I want to study, have a post-graduation, or to take a certification course abroad. Who is responsible for giving the get-go, the approval, to approve such how can I say, what they ask, right? They ask for these courses, right? You have these pleads, and then the manager may or may not approve, depending on very different aspects. For example, budget, if the budget does or doesn't allow, or maybe the manager decides that this course is not important at the moment. For example, you work with logistics and you demand to make a course to study Chinese, and the company doesn't have any interaction with Chinese customers or suppliers. So you see, everything human resources human resources as a whole makes, is tied to the company's strategy. So it's not, even if an employee wants something, it's not as easy as he or she thinks. And especially in times when the budget is tight. I remember, for example, in the company I worked in the past, it was very common, I don't say it was easy, because someone must approve, right? It's not, I want to enroll in a master's degree course, right? For example, I had a master's degree because of the company I work for. And it was 100% paid by the company. I had one post-graduation paid for by the company as well. I had a certification paid by the company abroad. Everything was related to the area I was working. For example, workforce planning. I work as a workforce planning analyst, so it's tied to this strategy. Or I want to have a post-graduation in human resources. Okay, it's tied to this strategy. You work for the human resources department. So it's coherent, right? It adheres to the strategy, right? And you can explain, you can justify why it is needed or not needed. So why am I saying everything like this? Why am I explaining? Because the context of the companies change throughout the time, right? They change all the time. For example, nowadays, if I want to take a certification course in the US, do you think I will have it approved? It's not likely. I would say it's very unlikely. Or if I want a master's degree, even less. So you see, times change, strategies change. In the past, before COVID-19 hit the planet, nobody thought about, at least in my company or in general, companies didn't think much about flexi time, flexi work, working from home. They didn't think, okay, administrative jobs, they can be done remotely. You don't need to go to the office every single day, clock in, clock out, clock in, clock out, like a prison, right? Every single day. I know. I don't consider it to be a prison, but it's not necessary. Do you think it's necessary for administrative work? Depending on the nature of the job you have, okay, it's fine. For example, you work directly for customers. You work in service. restaurants, hotels, you're a doctor, you are a nurse. Depending on the type of business, it's necessary. But many companies, they have this, okay, because you need to gather together, blah, 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 to have, it's important. Beside the blah, blah, blah part, they say, okay, it's important, yeah. But is it really necessary to clock in at 8 and clock out at 5 every day? Companies now, they value more having a high performance, right? For example, if everything that is given to me, I do it on time or even before the deadline is met, if I do everything is required for me, if I exceed the expectations, what is best? A person who clocks in, clocks out, and doesn't do anything, or a person who is a high performer but not necessarily get formal recognition? But anyway, getting back, what is better for a professional? An HR professional must be aware of this. If you have a high performance, it's okay. But if you don't have a high performance, whose responsibility is to monitor whether the person is doing something or not doing anything? Manager. HR? No. The operational manager. The managers in general from the company, every manager is responsible for establishing goals and monitoring performance and giving appraisals where it's necessary. Not just appraisal, but recognizing, right? Formally rewarding, because many managers, they don't know that either. They like to give appraisals like crazy. Okay, give appraise. Oh, wow, that's great. Blah, 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 blah. But when the time comes, when the time of truth comes, this manager doesn't recognize the employee. And you know, employees, they are not full, right? Anyway, so you understand the nature of a manager who is human resource related or not. It doesn't matter. Every manager manages people. As I said in the first video, people are the most valuable assets the organization may have. It gives the company a coach, right? So, human resource managers are responsible for many things. They are responsible for writing policy and procedures. Remember that I said that? Policy and procedures, they are important for the company. Jesus Christ. Every time it pops up a different message. They are responsible to write policy and procedures. For example, if you work in a training department, the training department must have procedures and policies to rule, right? To guide the managers from the company on what should be done or shouldn't be done. Or when you talk about performance management rule and procedures, they come from human resources, right? But human resources, it's important to emphasize, human resources department doesn't just take an idea out of blue, right? Okay, I want to do this, I want to do that. Depending on the company, and most likely every company, I can't guarantee it works like that for every company, because I don't know every single company in the world. But if you work for a big company, it's likely that everything that human resources designs, for example, I have designed a strategic workforce planning process, how it works, what are the instances of approval, who should approve, what the responsibilities are, what the managers do, what the high administration does, right? What the HR responsibility is. Everything must have the get-go from the high administration, from the board of directors. The board of directors, they approve the overall strategy, not only from HR. HR strategy is built by HR, but it doesn't mean that it isn't connected to the overall strategy. HR is not supposed to build a strategy that doesn't have a connection to the overall strategy from the company, okay? That's why writing policy and procedures, every manager is responsible for that. Every manager, I say from the functional areas. The main executive, right, from human resources, the executive officer from human resources is responsible for writing policy and procedures, or for having, of course, the manager itself is not going to write, writing policy and procedures, you know how it works. Who builds? Who works operationally, thinking about the strategy? Who builds the work, the procedures, the rules, the policies? You have the analysts, and then they submit the manager, the direct manager to them, oversees the work that is done, and sees whether it's necessary to make some corrections, some adjustments. Maybe it's necessary to change the document or not, and then submit to the higher administration to approve. Maybe it's not approved, and then it comes back and it needs to be rebuilt or redone. Maybe some minor adjustments, maybe not. Maybe you need to start from scratch. You see the nature of things. So actually, the human resource manager is responsible for having the policy and procedures approved. He doesn't write, right? He doesn't, okay, now if I'm the manager, I'm going to write. No, he has other people who work for him, right? Other departments build and reach a consensus about it, and many discussions, many meetings. The document comes and goes, everything. So you have here much time and work involved, right? Because many different ideas and disagreements, and one agrees to adjust the document, another part doesn't do that. People are different. If you make a work alone and say, okay, I think this is okay, this is good. When you show to another person, it changes. The document may change or may not change, right? Maybe the document it's excellent to you, but when you submit to other people's point of view, he sees something that you didn't consider. It's for the best, right? It's necessary to have different heads thinking about the same thing, the same subject, to build a broader material and a more complete one. okay? Okay, the human resources is responsible for hiring people. Yeah, in big companies, HR hires people. Is responsible for designing the selection, the recruitment and selection process, hiring psychologists, hiring people from health department, you name it. Releasing advertisement about the process, right, to attract more people. What communication strategy will be? For example, newspapers, TV, internet, social media. Nowadays, people use a lot social media to make public the ads, right? The job positions they have to offer, especially LinkedIn, for example. I see many people sharing opportunities, job opportunities. So it's much more fluid than when I graduated. When I graduated, the process was more stiff, right? You didn't have the internet working for the people like it does today. Everything is shared at an absurd speed, right? So you can have access to companies quickly. You can apply for jobs, even remote jobs. Apply for jobs abroad if you meet the requirements. You can work from Brazil to a company in Europe, for example. And in the past, it wasn't possible. It wasn't possible like this. It wasn't as easy. You had these job agencies, right? Physical companies, job agencies that you had to go on to have a resume, a physical resume, and then you see. No, nowadays it's very different. The recruitment and selection processes, for example, for many companies, is done entirely online, right? Entirely online. Public selection processes that here in Brazil, public contests, in Brazil we call concursos, they are not done remotely. Of course not, but many selection processes for trainees program, for example, and even having interviews, you don't have to travel to the company to participate, to take part in that selection process, right? So just a few examples of how technology helped us become better, right? It helped the companies achieve their goals better. And nowadays, HR is more strategic than ever. I hope you enjoyed today's video. It's already almost, oh my God, almost 40 minutes long. And I hope you enjoyed today's video. We will talk a lot more about it in the next videos I record, but don't forget that I have this channel has a complete grammar, basic grammar course, intermediate and advanced grammar course. Every topic that you think of, you can look it up, open the main page, right, and to search the topic you want to study, because my channel is organized throughout many different playlists, which you can choose what you want to watch, right? What you want to study. From basic to advanced, basic videos with explanations in Portuguese, okay? And this video is aimed at intermediate and advanced students. Grammar, vocabulary, business English, exercises, read and talk about, in which I choose different articles from the internet, and I explore vocabulary and English grammar, or even explore the ideas, the issues in the article. So there is a lot of content for you to choose from, right? Almost 800 videos available. And I hope you enjoyed it. Give a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell when to get the latest updates. I had in hiatus of uploading videos because I went under a surgery. Now I'm feeling a lot better. But I spend more time in bed than in here. So I decided I will do something to have fun as well. And then I will rest. But I'm feeling much better. That's why. But I will record videos more frequently now on, right? The channel isn't dead yet, and even if it was dead, you have a lot of content already to watch. See you next time.